Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy, Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, we're, of course, taking a little bit of a dive into some of the best and even some of the worst performances from this weekend's preseason games. It's going to be a good one, so go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome in Dustin, Scott, Mark, Applied Literature, Donald, Jason, Alex, Jamie, Ryan. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you're listening on the podcast as well, thank you for listening there as well. Again, everyone, you can find the Wake and Take podcast via the link in the description. If you can't make it to the live show, you could damn sure listen whenever you can. So, guys, we had a bunch of preseason games as it goes, and we had some standouts. And I'm doing standouts today because there's winners, there's losers. I just want to talk about some of the biggest stories from this weekend's preseason games, as well as just some other stories that kind of developed as this one. Gardner Minshew has officially been named the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, at least for week one. We'll see how it develops over the course of the season, but it makes sense. Of course, we've been talking about this all offseason. Gardner Minshew is just a better quarterback than Aiden O'Connell. It's easy to say. It's easy to know. It's easy to understand. Aiden O'Connell, great story, but he only had one game with more than 2 touchdowns last year, and it took them to have to score 63 points for him to be able to do that. He's fine. He's a good enough backup. I feel like Aiden O'Connell's like a Davis Mills type to where you're not upset he's your backup. He was okay as a starter. But Gardner Minshew's an actual NFL quarterback. He might be the 31st best quarterback in the league, but he's one of the top 32 as it stands right now. So it always made sense, especially with it being a 2-year contract, for Gardner Minshew to come in and be the quarterback. If they were, a believer in Aiden O'Connell, they wouldn't have made that move. If anything, they maybe would have addressed it in the draft or something. They bring in the vet who almost led the Colts to the playoffs last year, who's, not the best, but not the worst either. And that's exactly what the Raiders need. They're going to be run heavy, and they want to feed the ball to Devontae Adams. Gardner Minshew is perfect at handing the ball off and perfect at throwing the ball to one receiver way too often. And so Gardner Minshew, we knew it. We've all talked about it here. It was going to be the case. This is what was going to happen, and it's official. And I'm going to be honest here. I am shocked it honestly took this long, but also I do want to give some props to Aiden O'Connell. I mean, think about it. This is Gardner Minshew we're talking about. Again, I know he's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but we just saw what he did in Indianapolis. He was all right in Jacksonville, despite being on a terrible, terrible Jacksonville Jaguars team. And even in Philly, was able to fill in admirably. Like, this is genuinely an NFL quarterback. So for it to take this long, right, for Aiden O'Connell to continuously still compete with Gardner Minshew, it takes a lot. It really does. So really props to AOC for being able to, make this a competition. But it's Gardner Minshew, right? Like, he's gonna go out there. We all know it. He's gonna throw for 250 yards. He's gonna throw for 2 touchdowns, and he's gonna throw an interception here and there. And that's just what the Raiders' offense is gonna look like. The defense is gonna keep them in the games, and Gardner Minshew is gonna feed the ball to Devontae Adams. Zamir White's gonna have a ridiculous amount of carries, and I'm sure Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers are going to get some pass attempts as well. As we saw last year in Indianapolis, all of those Colts tight ends became pretty, not very fantasy relevant, but good NFL producers. They combined for over 800 yards and 100 targets as a group. Now we've just got 2 pretty consolidated tight ends as opposed to 5 catching the ball. So either way, I do like this Raiders offense, and I'm excited that Gardner Minshew's the starter. Congratulations to those of you that have been listening and got Gardner Minshew on your team. He's my QB3 in Scott Fishbowl. So hopefully that ends up working out, and I've got a decent bit of exposure to him in underdog superflex drafts, just because, I understand he's not great. I understand that. I'm not going to be I'm not ever going to say that, but he is a good NFL quarterback, and that's exactly what the Raiders need. So congratulations to Minshew. Minshew Mania is back on the menu. Let's go. So that's kind of like the big story. That's honestly all I have for you in terms of non-preseason performances. Because actually, if you look at the box score from this Vegas game, Gardner Minshew had a less than 50% completion percentage, 10-21 for 95 yards, but wasn't sacked, didn't turn the ball over. Whereas Aiden O'Connell threw a pretty horrendous interception towards the end. But even for Aiden O'Connell, he was 14-20, 96 yards, had a touchdown. before his interception that kind of, I think, sealed the deal. I will go ahead and say, obviously, this is really good for Davante Adams. Gardner Minshew's not very great at spreading it around. He can do it. We saw Josh Downs get some targets last year and stuff too. Like, they'll be like Jacoby Myers is going to be fine. But the big winner here is Davante Adams. And, maybe Dylan Lobb catching some passes. Zamir White, of course, this just makes it like this is just going to be a better offense. It's just going to be a boring NFL offense that does lead to fantasy production for a few of them. Probably Zamir White, probably Davante Adams, and I'm sure Gardner Minshew will be fine. I do want to say while we're here in the deeper Superflex leagues, I'm going to go ahead once again, recommend picking and stashing Carter Bradley. That is their third quarterback right now. But this is a player who really impressed me at the Senior Bowl. His college resume is pretty impressive as well, with a couple big upsets despite going to a small school. And he performed really well at the Senior Bowl. Carter Bradley, I actually wrote about him in my post-Senior Bowl article. He has a floor of NFL backup quarterback. Like, that is exactly what he demonstrated to me. He's a really, really good backup. So I think that he could come in and start, not obviously be one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league, but I think he's like a top 40 type talent, really. Like, he is a really good pocket passer from what I saw. He seems to show up on the bigger stages as well. I mentioned some really big college upsets from his time at Southern Alabama and Tulane. So Carter Bradley, someone I want to keep my eye on. As Gardner Minshew has a little bit of an injury history. Aiden O'Connell, I think that the plug could be pulled too if he has to come in. And also, his play style is a little bit conducive to injuries as well. So I could see a potential of Carter Bradley coming in at some point, just because, he is a pretty decent pocket passing backup type quarterback, like a Jake Browning or something like that, who could come in and actually be pretty decent. And with those weapons, that could actually mean something. So that's someone to keep your eye on for your deeper leagues. But let's move on to some of the players who actually performed well. Like, who is actually making a name for themselves in these preseason games. And we'll just start with some of the obvious ones. We'll start here with Drake Maye. Drake Maye, they played on Thursday night, and he finished the day 6 of 11 for 47 yards and also added a rushing touchdown on the ground. The big winning thing here is that he was only sacked one time. As we know, he was sacked a ton during the practices against the Eagles heading up to this preseason game. And we know that's been a really big issue just throughout training camp and even in his first preseason start. For him to go out there and only get sacked once, for him to, 6 of 11 is how it ended, but he was like 6 of 8 at one point, I believe, and then just kind of went on an incomplete tear. But still, to see him perform decently enough, to see him add the carries, 4 rushes for 15 yards, as well as a rush touchdown, that's exactly what you want to see, especially with, of course, Jacoby Brissett not looking as good. Jacoby Brissett actually threw an interception and had around a 50% completion percentage himself. So this just, provides some confidence in the Patriots staff that Drake Maye, while he may not be able to come in and perform super well, if he ever gets asked to do that, he could come in and be fine, right? I don't think it would be the end of the world if he came in. They're not going to score a ton of points. He's going to struggle a lot. But I don't think they would be sending him back there to kill him if they did. You know what I mean? So I think that this was a solid step in the right direction for Drake Maye, leading to hopefully a more productive rookie season. It had kind of been a struggle up to this point, but to now start to see some hype, to start to see some production, it's really, really good news for him. And it's also really, really good news for Bo Nix, who also found himself performing really, really well in the preseason. Again, this is now back-to-back weeks of him looking like Bo Nix. And I'm honestly pretty happy for him. It's really cool to see. He finishes the day 8 of 9, 80 yards and a touchdown, 3 carries for 12 yards. And this is one of the players who really has to prove it. A lot of people made fun of the Broncos for this draft pick. A lot of people, even myself included, after the Senior Bowl, felt that Bo Nix wasn't really doing enough throughout this pre-draft process to make you think he's worth a high first-round draft pick, or even that he could play similar to how he played in Oregon last season. But what he's demonstrated in this preseason game so far is the fact that he can have a really high completion percentage. He can do really well at not turning the ball over. He can run this offense. He can scramble a few times to pick up some first downs. He had 3 carries for 12 yards. And the big thing here was not sacked. Took 0 sacks in this game. So Bo Nix is looking really, really good. He really is. And this is despite not having the greatest weapons or the greatest offensive line. So I'm getting even more excited about him. You guys already know I really do believe in all these rookie quarterbacks. And I know that could come across as me just not wanting to take a negative stance on any of these players. But I genuinely, just in my heart and soul, feel like all of these quarterbacks got the perfect landing spot for what they can bring to their team. Bo Nix included. This is a very similar offense to where he succeeded in Oregon. It's a very quick processing offense where he wants to get the ball out fast. You utilize the pass catchers, you utilize these short routes, and he's doing a really, really good job of commanding this thing. Very excited to see him and Sean Payton start to warm up. And then as the Broncos start to, develop some of these weapons, Marvin Mims has still been off to a slow start. Troy Franklin's been off to a slow start. But as they get acclimated, I think it could be really, really good news. And then if they don't win a lot of games, which they're not gonna, they're going to be in the sweepstakes for some of the top wide receivers coming out in next year's draft, which could be huge for Bo Nix. So I just want to recommend, taking some swings on him as your QB3 or something in the seasonal, in seasonal leagues. And then in Dynasty, definitely go trade for him as well, as he's cheap. I mean, and this was the biggest complaint to me this offseason. I talked about it all the time. Why was Bo Nix being drafted like after Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey, the running backs in our Superflex Dynasty rookie drafts? Why? He's a quarterback. Okay, I know that he didn't have a great Senior Bowl, and I know that he's old and took forever to break out in college, but he's still a quarterback, and these are Superflex leagues. You can't get young quarterbacks very easily in Superflex, and Bo Nix was going in the second round of some. It was honestly ridiculous, and the price still isn't high enough. I do recommend trying to get him right now. You could take Deshaun Watson, for example, a dude who I'm already just assuming is totally washed, and get Bo Nix and a cherry on top, and you're years younger. And it just makes so much sense to move on from Bo Nix. But I do have a play for you. Here is his, I believe this was his touchdown, or it could have just been a nice pass to Courtland Sutton. Which one did I pick? Yes, this was his touchdown pass. It doesn't seem too great. It's only a few yards. But this just really encapsulates what Bo Nix is going to be able to bring to the NFL, and why I am just getting pretty excited about him is he's just an NFL quarterback, okay? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And even then, he showed some wheels. But check out this play.
Quick count. They're back on the ball. Show the ball to.
And I mean, this defensive lineman is in his face, hands up right here. And he's able to get it off on his back foot, just barely over him, threads the needle. I mean, a bunch of 5 corners around this wide receiver, even if none of them are actually close to him.
Sell the defense,
and just gets it right where it needs to go. I mean, that is not an easy pass to make while running out on a bootleg after the play action with a 300-pound dude screaming in your face. So, I mean, just the composure of being able to do that, 8 of 9 for 80 yards. Like, that's awesome. So really congratulations to Bo Nix. Really good week for him. Excited to see how this develops throughout the rest of preseason, but of course through the season as well. Counterpoint, playing against a bunch of future Amazon drivers. Still, doesn't matter. That's what the preseason is. That's what, as we'll talk about here. Caleb Williams also playing against a bunch of Amazon truck drivers, but Caleb Williams, again, looking like a just true stud. And the beautiful thing about Caleb Williams, I didn't make an overlay for him. Sorry, guys. The beautiful thing about the Caleb Williams outbreak or breakout throughout this preseason, and especially now week 2, is his connection with Rome Odunze as well. So Caleb Williams finishes the day 6 of 13 for 75 yards. Also grabs himself a rushing touchdown. But Rome Odunze had an incredible 45-yard grab and was also used on a run, had a carry for 16 yards, and then almost had a touchdown. So I'm going to play a couple clips here as well to kind of demonstrate just their connection in general. Here was the 45-yard grab.
He's looking downfield, nothing there. Spins away, throws on the move. It is caught!
Just beautiful stuff from Rome Odunze. But, I mean, check out this move from Caleb Williams in the pocket as well.
He's looking down.
Just spins out,
spins away.
Gets his body completely contorted around to make sure he can make the throw, and gets it 45 yards to Rome Odunze. Incredible play by him. And then also, this was the almost touchdown by Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams. And really, it would have been a touchdown if they didn't, or if they did a better job spray painting this end zone. As you can see here, it's pretty plain. It's green, so it's pretty hard to know where you're going, especially as you see there's a second box on the outside. So that was pretty confusing, I imagine, for Rome Odunze, but still, check this play out. A lot of it comes down to the athleticism of Caleb Williams, but even Rome Odunze just staying open the whole time is incredible. So another little bootleg action thing here, rolling out, just completely covered by the D lineman, but juked him out, and then right on the sideline, dude spins it. Caleb Williams, just Patrick Mahomes has a play. Finds Rome Odunze in the back corner, who's standing there just over the pylon, like just behind the pylon. But I think if this was painted better, perhaps a solid color, or at the very least, not a second line going all the way around it, I think this definitely would have been a touchdown. And even though it's not, still, to see Caleb Williams extend the play so well and to see him, improvise and find Rome Odunze in the back of the end zone with such a nice pass is exactly what you want to hear and see. We know that this connection is going to continue to blossom throughout their careers. And that's why I've been screaming and screaming and screaming to draft Rome Odunze in seasonal leagues and to buy him in Dynasty. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Chicago over his career. This is going to be a connection that we hear about for years and years and years to come. An extremely talented wide receiver, an extremely talented quarterback, both top 10 draft picks coming in as rookies in the same year. That's going to be a friendship off the field and a massive friendship on the field as well. Again, I know that this one wasn't a touchdown, but it was still a very good play. And this just reminds me of my pickup soccer or soccer league in general, where we play on a football field and you just never know where anything is because you're playing soccer on a football field. And then it's just lines after lines after lines. It's confusing when there's this many painted lines on a field. So I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to Rome. I think if this was an actual game, he would have stayed perfectly within the confines of the end zone and scored himself a touchdown. And then lastly, I believe I had one more rookie quarterback to talk about, or maybe not. No more rookie quarterbacks. Those are the 3 rookie quarterbacks that really stood out this weekend. Congratulations to Bo Nix, Drake May, and Caleb Williams to keeping things going. Now, some other big winners from the preseason. We're just going to go ahead and do it. You guys know where we're going with this. Do I have a drum roll sound effect? I don't think I do. I need to add a drum roll sound effect. No drum roll sound effect. So anyway, we're just going to go with good old Ryan Flournoy. Ladies and gentlemen, it happened. It finally happened. It happened, and it will not stop here. For those of you who were able to join me on the Ryan Flournoy hype train, congratulations, as that thing has now left the station. People are getting very excited about this wide receiver again. This has been one of my favorite players to talk about all offseason. My super rookie flag plant, my deep sleeper. This is a player you want at the end of your dynasty rosters. 6th-round draft pick to the Dallas Cowboys out of Southeast Missouri State. 6'1", 200 pounds, 4.4 40-yard dash. Incredible college career, back-to-back years leading his team in receiving and being all conference honors. And now coming out this preseason, last week, this was his first game action, had missed a few practices because of a knee injury, has now fully made it back, getting back up to game speed. And what's he do in this preseason game, guys? 4 receptions, 23 yards, and he scores a touchdown! Let's go! And it's not like he just scored a touchdown. No, he be a true NFL starting cornerback. He broke Jack Jones's ankles, guys. He looked incredible. I would love, actually, you know what? After I play this, I'm just going to play more of his highlights. He looks so good. And maybe it's the 18. Like, maybe it's just like, holy shit, I'm watching Dez Bryant again. But he just looks so good. And one of the first things I told you guys is he looks so much bigger than just 6'1", 200. Hey, we're back. We're back. Let's go. Let's go. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, I think it was me just searching Twitter that made my computer mad. But here we go. Here's an entire minute of Ryan Flournoy's action. Even run blocks are shown in this. And you guys know how I feel about run blocking. Here we go. Ryan Flournoy, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yeah, baby. He's circled here. He's circled. Boom! Get blocked, boy! You don't mess with Flournoy. Here we go. All right, he's circled again. What do we got? What's he going to do? Picks up a block at the offensive line. What a big man. Oh, he doesn't stop there. Oh, he doesn't stop there. He keeps going. It gets the linebacker. Oh, my God. Okay, he's out wide. What do we got here? What do we got? Oh, Oh my God, just a catch. Just a nice catch on the in-breaking route. Okay, lined up out wide. Is this just another run block? Nope. Nice little out route right there. Getting to the sideline. Okay. What do we got going on here? Circle that bad boy. Oh, he's searching for contact on that jet sweep. Getting that run block of the first man in the backfield. He's picking that up. Okay, here's the touchdown. It was a quick slant. Whoop, cuts it out. Just wide open back of the end zone. Incredible stuff from Ryan Flournoy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is happening. Get him while you still can. This is not the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver 4. No. This is the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver 2, opposite CD Lamb. I've been saying it all offseason. I'm not letting up. Ryan Flournoy, guys, a stud and a half. Very, very excited for this season. Let's go. All right, here we go. Floor Joy, good stuff. Unreal call. He did look amazing versus Amazon drivers. And again, that was the ones. Jack Jones, ladies and gentlemen, is who was covering him on that play. Former Patriots cornerback Jack Jones, who is totally on a new team for no reason at all and wasn't, released by his team for no reason at all. Anyway, Ryan Flournoy, keeping it up. And hey, while we're here, I just want to give a little bit of a to Trey Lance as well. I told you guys I have not had any analytics at this at all, but I've said that my gut feeling is that Trey Lance in Dallas makes sense. It just makes sense to me. I think that Trey Lance is a really good backup to Dak Prescott, and eventually, he was going to get reps and get acclimated to the NFL. It's still going to take some time. He's still obviously not there, but in this game, he looked pretty damn good. Trey Lance had 2 touchdowns, wasn't sacked, didn't turn the ball over, 15 of 23 for 151 yards and a pass touchdown, 7 carries for 34 yards and a rush touchdown. That's the athleticism that Trey Lance was drafted for. Things are looking up in Dallas, guys. And when it's Trey Lance throwing the ball to Ryan Flournoy in 2025, whew, oh boy, my Wake and Take Invitational team is going to be awesome. But anyway, that's the Ryan Flournoy hype. Once it happens in season, just go ahead and pick out your finest outfits, as we will be throwing a dance party. You already know it. But this is the precursor. The precursor to the Ryan Flournoy dance party. This is just the Ryan Flournoy preseason victory lap. We will have a true dance party celebration when he truly breaks out in the NFL. But it's off to a fantastic start, and I'm very excited to see some more. All right, next big winner. Not a big winner, but just a winner. Will Shipley. Over the weekend, had 5 carries for 15 yards, but it's not that great. But he had 4 receptions for 31 yards, and that is what he was drafted for. Will Shipley is a receiving back. He is the handcuff to own in Philadelphia. If anything happens to Will Shipley, he will be utilized a ton as a pass catcher, and I'm sure he's going to have some usage as well, just to kind of spell Saquon Barkley throughout the season. Again, Saquon Barkley is going to have 85-90% of the opportunities here in Philadelphia, but Will Shipley is going to mix in. He's a rookie. He's from Clemson. He's got good speed, and he's especially good as a pass catcher. So see these 4 receptions for 31 yards out of the backfield is exactly what you want to see from Mr. Shipley. Now we'll move to a loser. We haven't talked a loser in a bit, so why don't we go ahead and talk Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes looked awful. He looked absolutely terrible, and that's just the problem, right? Then I'm not going to lie. I have not been very firm in my takes on Daniel Jones this offseason, whether it be I like him, don't like him. Really, the only thing I've said about this situation is to pick up Drew Lock, just because I don't think Daniel Jones is going to finish the season. And that wasn't even a performance issue. As we know, Daniel Jones actually has an injury guarantee in his contract, similar to Russell Wilson, to where his contract would become fully guaranteed if he were not able to pass a physical going into the 2025 season. Given he's coming off an ACL tear, given the Giants have already demonstrated that they want a new quarterback, whether it be what we saw in Hard Knocks during the pre-draft process or the fact they brought in Drew Lock to begin with, shows that the New York Giants are pretty much done with Daniel Jones, and they do want a new quarterback because they don't want to pay that money. They don't want to risk an injury, yada, 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 and they're looking towards next year. But they were going to give him a chance, right? Like, they have to give him a chance because they spent a ton of money on him. And so it's really a tough situation to be in. where he's going to probably start for the beginning of the season, and then I think he's just going to lose it. And what we saw in this preseason game was that he's not even he might not even start very long. I mean, 11 of 18 for 138 yards, no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. One of those being this pick 6 that I'll go ahead and share, an obviously terrible pick 6 from Daniel Jones, just very vintage Danny Dimes.
Some trouble
rolls out. He's avoiding pressure. You never make this throw. You never make this throw. This looks like what I do when I'm losing in Madden and I'm just trying to score a touchdown and I've abandoned the run.
Look at Saquon Barkley anymore in New York, so he'll get a lot of carries. Jones in some trouble.
So first off, he does a pump fake here as he's getting blitzed.
Jones in some trouble.
And then breaks out of it, or almost breaks out of it. And while falling, just decides to throw it to the flat. His guy that's literally being swallowed up by Jalen Peachtree. This literally is awful.
Trouble in the end zone, and it's intercepted.
And of course, Jalen Peachtree is going to pick that off and make it into a touchdown. Daniel Jones, you've been in the league long enough to know that you don't make that throw. Again, that looks like me playing Madden out there. That is not good stuff. Absolutely terrible stuff. And just worried, right? I mean, obviously he's going to start. We all know it, but he's not. He is not the future of the New York Giants. They wasted that money. The contract, it is what it is. He's going to make his money this year. And the Giants are just crossing their fingers that he doesn't get injured and they have to pay the rest of the contract. And because of that, I very much do think this will develop into what we saw from Russell Wilson last year in that, he honestly was okay, right? He was just average, but the Broncos saw that injury guarantee and had come to the conclusion that they were ready to move on from him. So they just benched him. They were just like, we're done. We're going to move on from you. We're going to swallow the dead cap. We're done. We don't want to take any risks. And I just think that's what the Giants are going to do. It's going to be a lost season. The offensive line is still not very good. And they didn't draft Malik Neighbors to save Daniel Jones. They drafted Malik Neighbors to make the rookie quarterback next season have an easier transition. Speaking of Malik Neighbors, 4 receptions for 54 yards and a 5-yard rush. Good stuff by him. One of those was an amazing highlight grab. The only problem is, right now, obviously, you're going to be able to perform really, really well in the preseason with that quarterback play because the corners still aren't very good and the defense isn't necessarily worried about losing, right? They just want to kind of play their role and do what they're asked. So they're not really going to be out there double, triple teaming Malik Neighbors. In season, Malik Neighbors is going to have a much tougher time, not just due to the quarterback play, but because defenses will be keying in on him. He is the offense of New York. He's still going to get a ton of volume and he's still going to be productive, but we really do need to start kind of tempering expectations a little bit in terms of what ceiling he's going to be able to attain, because he's probably not going to score he's probably going to have 2 or 3 touchdowns. It's not going to be good in the touchdown department. All of it's going to come from volume and some explosive plays here and there. He's obviously still going to be productive and fine. And I'm not really saying fade him, really. But I do think that there's probably going to be a little bit of a buying window throughout this season to where you're looking for dynasty at Malik Neighbors. We're not quite there for him being an elite redraft asset. I don't think he's going to be a really, really good redraft asset. But not, he's not going to be top 5, right? He just can't. Not in this offense. It's just not possible. He could have 250 targets, and he's probably still only wide receiver 10 with that. It's going to be very, very hard for Neighbors this year, but definitely an asset we still want. Definitely still worth the risk in redraft. It's just, we've got to temper expectations in terms of the ceiling. So anyway, this was a game against the Texans. So why don't we just talk about some Texans players looking to make a noise for themselves this season? And it's 2 smaller players. John Mechie finally shows some signs of life. And of course, I dropped him last week. I finally gave up. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I don't care. I don't want him. I'm done. He's had opportunity after opportunity and just hasn't done anything. He looked bad in the Hall of Fame game. He looked bad in the first week of preseason. He just has not looked good. And then sure enough, as I drop him last week, he goes 6 of 7 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown. Looked pretty damn good as well. Nice diving grab for the touchdown. Busts out his Crimson Crane dance move. All that fun stuff. So John Mechie, trying to lock himself in as the wide receiver 4 on this offense. At the worst, wide receiver 5, maybe behind Noah Brown, as Noah Brown looked so good last year. But either way, John Mechie locking himself onto the roster with this performance. And, it's still going to be very hard for him to see any fantasy usage. Again, there's still 3 really awesome wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell ahead of him. But even Noah Brown last year was really decent when he came in for injuries. So it's still going to be a long path to success. but it's still a nice story. We like John Mechie here. Second round draft pick. He has everything you want in a prospect, really. And should be a good slot receiver. It just seems that it's still going to take a lot of time. Going to take some injuries, but good to see an important and nice production from Mechie. Next, another Texan, and this is just a Jason thing. I'm never going to quit Cam Akers. I see Robster here in the chat. He's one of my really good friends, if not my best friend. And he's just talking about, you making fun of me for saying Peachtree, but, he knows it. I have an undying passion for Cam Akers. You guys know it. I can't give up Cam Akers for some reason. It's just one of those players. I just love him. It is what it is. Anyway, Cam Akers is the running back to own in Houston, not named Joe Mixon. He's the handcuff. Check out this run, guys.
Confidence as the game goes on.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 men just ready to tackle him here as he's given the ball to the left side of the offensive line. Everyone's there. What's he do?
Akers reversing field. There's room out there. Cam Akers steps to the tackle. Now a chance for the speed.
And the real crime of this is that 24 is a defensive back. If that was another linebacker or defensive lineman,
now a chance for the speed.
Either way, I saw some jokes this offseason from medical Twitter that Cam Akers tearing his second Achilles would actually bring back his explosiveness. The main concern with Achilles injuries is you usually tear your other one because you're overcompensating. Now that they're both surgically repaired, a lot of people were kind of making the assumption that he might actually be fine again. He's, of course, lost some explosiveness. I get it. But think about the other running backs on this roster, namely Dameon Pierce, who's also not explosive. And given it's Joe Mixon ahead of him, I find myself starting to get pretty excited about Akers again. It's obviously going to take an injury. Like Joe Mixon takes a ton of volume, but Cam Akers has looked good in every single preseason game so far. Like he really has, not just this highlight that I played, but he looked good in the Hall of Fame game. He looked good last week as well. He seems pretty spry. He doesn't seem like Cam Akers of old, but he seems like 85-90% of him, which is nice. He was awesome in Los Angeles prior to his original injury. So I like Cam Akers a lot. I'm never going to quit him. And to see him perform this well in the preseason, I'm getting excited. Let's see. The next player we could talk about is Xavier Worthy. And I did make a thing for it, but it did not save. I ran out of space. Okay, hold on. I got to delete something here, guys. What? Okay, whatever. Xavier Worthy, you get the point. I'm talking Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy scored a touchdown, 3 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown for Xavier Worthy. Looking damn good. Very exciting stuff from Xavier Worthy. Here we go. I guess I just can't share clips anymore. I don't know. Xavier Worthy scored a touchdown, though. We're not sharing any more clips. Thank you to those of you who stuck around and got to see some clips. Still stick around. We'll just be talking. But Xavier Worthy, 3 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown. On his touchdown, he was wide open, which is what you should expect for that type of speed. So, this is going to be the guy doing everything, right? Especially with Marquise Brown out. It's awesome to see him step up. His ADP is going to continue to rise. Xavier Worthy. Next, Trey Benson. 9 carries for 43 yards. Is he a winner? Is he a loser? He's a winner. Trey Benson looked awful last week in the preseason. I'm not going to lie. This week, he started to look a little bit better. He still demonstrated some of the issues I saw where he was running straight to his offensive line or just following the lead blocker. But he also had a couple really good runs where he did find some space and look really explosive. So I still think that this is going to be a little bit of a transitional period where he gets acclimated to just the NFL and stuff. And that's, probably why he fell like he did in the draft. Not too far. I understand that. He was still drafted really high. But, he was expected to go a little bit earlier than he did. And, the Cardinals have James Conner. So I think that they'll still use James Conner as they have. That I don't think that this is going to be a backfield split until James Conner gets hurt, and then Trey Benson will come in. And, maybe towards the end of the season, Trey Benson can kind of work his way into some sort of split, but it's still going to be James Conner for the foreseeable future, as Trey Benson hasn't shown enough to take over, but he's starting to at least demonstrate he's growing and getting a little bit better. So I'm getting a little excited about Trey Benson again after being soiled last week. Next, we have Michael Wiley. Michael Wiley, again, this has been one of the deeper players I told you guys about from the Senior Bowl. I went to the Senior Bowl, and Michael Wiley was a running back standout to me, especially as a pass catcher. He was probably the best pass-catching running back there over Dylan Long. I'm serious. He was incredible. Really good route runner, really soft hands, everything you want as a pass-catching running back, and some pretty decent college production. He finished He finished this weekend's preseason game with 3 receptions for 31 yards. On top of having a really good preseason performance last week as well. Michael Wiley is doing everything he can to be the RB3 on this depth chart. And if he can attain that, then that's going to see some success in fantasy this year. Austin Eckler is not going to finish the season. He's not at his age, not at his injury history. Michael Wiley is the clear replacement for him as the only other pass-catching running back really on the roster. So I just want to say in your deeper leagues, go ahead and pick up Mr. Wiley and get him while you can. Next up in Pittsburgh, we have this Justin Fields, Russell Wilson quarterback battle continuing to develop. And Justin Fields is continuing to win this thing, ladies and gentlemen. He's just too much fun. Justin Fields is just too much fun. He's just too explosive. It is what it is. Russell Wilson is not. He's not those things anymore. Russell Wilson is washed. The Broncos ate $45 million or whatever it was to not have to look at him again. Do you understand? Do you understand what that means? Do you understand how much money that is? They decided to lose $45 million just to not breathe the same air as Russell Wilson. Okay? So why was he going to start for Pittsburgh over Justin Fields? I don't know. I have no clue. I have been buying Justin Fields rookie cards all offseason. I'm up to like 15 of these bad boys because it never made any sense. Russell Wilson was clearly washed. He was. And God, why do I keep doing that? In the Steelers preseason game, Justin Fields finishes the day 11 of 17 for 92 yards and also has 8 rushes for 42 yards, has an incredible highlight where he breaks out of a sack and gets open for some yards. Russell Wilson on the other side, 8 of 10, which isn't bad, but only 47 yards, and was sacked 3 times. He was sacked 3 times. And it was exactly the type of sack you would expect if you heard the 3 words, Russell Wilson sacked. It is just, he has no pocket awareness at all. He drops all the way back and never steps back into the pocket, even if it's clean, and tries to escape out wide. And time after time again, just gets tackled by the defensive end because he's not fast anymore. He can't do that anymore, and he has not adapted his gameplay, his play style at all. And so he's washed. He's just not good. He's probably a fine backup quarterback. He might be the 33rd, 34th best quarterback in the league right now. And I love Russell Wilson. I love prime Russell Wilson, but he's obviously lost it. And Justin Fields is going to be the starter here. So big winner, Justin Fields. Love it. Now to Buffalo, where we've got some more Ray Davis hype building up. Ray Davis finishes the day with 8 carries for 58 yards. Just a little clap. Nothing too much to really add to that. Just want to say, get Ray Davis because he is not just a handcuff. He is a handcuff plus. James Cook cannot handle a bell cow workload. We've seen it now 2 years in a row. The Bills do not want to give James Cook the ball too often. Remember, Latavius Murray and Ty Montgomery were getting carries. Ty Johnson were getting carries last year in Buffalo. Ray Davis was drafted in the 4th round. He led the SEC in touchdown receptions last year. He was a mega producer as well. So he's going to be good. He's going to get like 30% of the opportunities in Buffalo, and he's going to do well with it. So get Ray Davis on your squads, especially if you own James Cook. The next big winner, and this was just a fun one, just a really fun one, Dylan Johnson. Do you guys remember this guy? Dylan Johnson, rookie running back from the University of Washington, got injured in the national championship, but played through it because he's a total dog. Dylan Johnson, who got undrafted and signed with the Tennessee Titans, who then got cut by the Tennessee Titans. Well, Dylan Johnson has found himself on the Carolina Panthers now, and he finished his preseason game with 18 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown and looked really damn good. And this is pretty exciting stuff, as the RB3 role in Carolina is wide open. It's like Mike Boone, Miles Sanders, who's awful. And what was that guy's name? There was another running back that was kind of undrafted. Either way, doesn't matter. Dylan Johnson looked really good in this preseason game, and I think doing what he can to be the RB3. Will it mean anything? Yes, because Jonathan Brooks, he's coming off an ACL, and Chuba Hubbard is the only other running back ahead of him. Dylan Johnson will probably get some carries if he earns that role. So just make sure you watch him to tune in to maybe Panthers camp this week as we head to the final preseason game. If he can perform again, then he's probably going to get a roster spot, and it's probably worth rostering in our deeper leagues. Next up, we've got some Jordan Whittington. Jordan Whittington continues to ball out as well. He finishes this preseason game with 5 receptions for 52 yards, locking himself in as the Rams wide receiver 3 at this point. Get him on your dynasty teams as well. I do want to say I still think it'll take an injury for him to be truly fantasy relevant where you're comfortable starting him, but a really, really good player to put in your bench. And I'm sure that there's going to be some flex appeal throughout the years and maybe or throughout the year in some shootouts. But Jordan Whittington, this is another rookie, not going to be Puka Nacua. Don't get excited, but still, 6th-round draft pick, looking really good in the preseason, already working with the first team. Jordan Whittington, seeming like a stud. Next, we have Taysom Hill. This is the tight end you want in Sleeper. Taysom Hill, 5 rushes for 21 yards and a touchdown. And his touchdown, he was lined up as a fullback. It was a fullback dive. They just handed it off to him. And a few of his runs, he was lined up as a true running back as well. With it, like not the quarterback taking a draw or whatever, like genuinely lined up in the backfield as a running back, lined up in the backfield as a fullback. They clearly are figuring out creative ways to use Taysom Hill. He's going to have a ton of carries, it looks like, as, the running back behind Alvin Kamara is way up for grabs. It totally is. They hate Kendre Miller, the coaching staff. Jamal Williams is old as hell. So Taysom Hill is probably the RB2 in terms of production. I'll put quotes around that. But still, Taysom Hill looking really good, especially for those of you, myself included, luckily, that got him in Scott Fishbowl with the carry bonus and stuff like that. It's going to be a pretty special year for him, it looks like, as there's not a lot of weapons in New Orleans outside of Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave, especially with Rashid Shaheed now also picking up a weird toe injury over the weekend. Taysom Hill, dread it, run from it, whatever. It remains. Taysom Hill is a fantasy producer. He just does it. That's just what he does. He'll never stop. He'll never stop. Yeah, as much as I hate it, Taysom Hill, he is a fantasy producer. And the last big winner. Who doesn't quit? Who doesn't stop? Who maybe puts himself in take lock a bit too often? This guy. And who never gave up on Kamani Vidal? Who saw the reports that Kamani Vidal was going to get cut and said, no, this guy, because he's good at football and he's just been injured. Why would the Chargers release Kamani Vidal? There are so many worse running backs on this roster, and they just drafted him, okay? Kamani Vidal was not in jeopardy. Maybe to go to practice squad or something, like maybe. That was the worst case for me, but he was not going to get cut by this team. It made absolutely no sense. And now he finally gets preseason action. Finally, 11 carries for 49 yards and also got himself 2 receptions. Kamani Vidal, Sassoon is still here. It's still going to happen. Nothing changed. It was always going to be Kamani Vidal, the RB3 on the Los Angeles Chargers behind J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. How did we know that? Well, they brought in Greg Roman, who coached J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in Baltimore. But what do we know about J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards? Not only are they both injury prone, but Gus Edwards has no explosiveness, and J.K. Dobbins is also lost a lot of his explosiveness. None of those running backs are going to survive the whole year. They're not. And even then, Kamani Vidal is probably a better running back than them at this point in their career and was going to be able to at some point overtake them. It's still going to happen. It took some time because he was injured throughout this preseason. I think it was like a random hamstring injury, a hip issue. That's just like random stuff where he was dinged up, but nothing serious. Now he's out there. Now he's balling as expected. This is Maurice Jones-Drew 2.0 on a very run-heavy offense with a very good offensive line, with a very good quarterback, so they can't sell out against the run. Get Kamani Vidal, ladies and gentlemen. Huge winner, Kamani Vidal. And that is everything I have for you guys. That is today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This was another fun episode. You guys were a great audience. As always, I'm going to figure out the technical issues by tomorrow. Not sure what they were, but we'll figure it out. You all have a magnificent Monday and a fantastic rest of your week. And I'll see you all tomorrow with Seth Dewald hopping on the show, joining me. So make sure you tune into that at 10 a.m. Eastern here on the Player Profiler, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a magnificent Monday, a wonderful rest of your week. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.